Hello, my name is Mr. Hussain and I'm one of the RS consultants for Harris Federation, and in this video I'm going to be going through the topic of Salah or prayer, which is part of the Islam practices section of the AQA GCSE RE. I'm going to make sure we cover all those aspects you can see on the checklist that are highlighted. So let's start with Salah itself and prayer. Many things to cover as Salah has got many different aspects. So Salah literally or by definition is prayer, and you will see it in both the 5 pillars of Sunni Islam and 10 obligatory acts of Shia Islam. Now, although it says 2 ways of practicing Salah, there are actually many elements of Salah you have to know about for your exam. So I'm going to make sure we cover all those elements to make sure we all know what they are. So the first element of Salah that you have to know is that before the Salah actually begins, a Muslim has to perform something called wudu, which is ablution, and which is a ritual washing that involves washing of the face, washing of the arms and hands, washing of the head, and washing of the feet. It's to purify your body physically, but also spiritually. The second aspect of before you even begin to perform your prayer as a Muslim is facing Mecca. So when you face Mecca, which is known as Qibla, you have to face the direction of Mecca in Saudi Arabia. Nowadays, there are many apps or many programs on the computers which you can use to give you direction towards which way Mecca is. And then you begin your Salah, and in your Salah, you have to complete certain movements. And these movements, all together as a collective, are called rak'ah. Now, a rak'ah involves a few things. It involves you standing, facing Mecca. It involves you reciting per verses of the Quran. It involves you bowing, and it involves you prostrating, which means putting your head on the floor. It also involves you sitting on your knees. The many things are done in terms of the rak'ah that a Muslim must do as part of their salah. So it is done in that way. So in terms of that's how prayer is done. What about other things about salah or prayer you have to know? Well, Muslims believe that there are 5 prayers that must be done in a day, and these can be done both at home on your own or at the mosque on your own or with a group of people. Either way is as important as each other, but many Muslims would say that praying in the mosque is much more rewarding and blessed because you're in a holy building and with a group of people, which makes the blessings multiplied. Now, how do Shia and Sunni Muslim perform and see Salah differently? Well, although they both believe in 5 daily prayers, the timings slightly differ. Now, Shia Muslims combine the 5 prayers. What do I mean by that? So if I look at the 5 prayers, the first prayer is done at sunrise. The second and third prayer are both done in the afternoon, and the fourth and fifth prayer are both done in the evening after sunset. So you can see that there are 5 prayers, but separated at 3 separate times of the day. In Sunni Islam, however, the 5 prayers have 5 completely separate times. The first prayer is at sunrise, the second prayer is in the noon, third prayer is later in the afternoon, fourth prayer is at sunset, and the 5th prayer is later in the evening. So 5 separate times for the 5 prayers for Sunni Muslims, but in Shia Islam still have 5 prayers, but at 3 different moments, not 5 different moments. A second thing you might see different between Sunni and Shia in terms of how they pray is hand placement. So Sunni Muslims will fold their arms when they pray on their chest or by their stomach, whereas Shia Muslims will have their hands by their side. And again, even though they may pray differently slightly, both Sunni and Shia Muslims are trying to pray the same way Prophet Muhammad prayed. But obviously, the sources they use to decide how Prophet Muhammad lived his life are going to be a bit different. So therefore, that's why they pray slightly differently. Why is Salah important to Muslims? Well, it is one of the pillars of Islam, which makes it important by itself. And number 2, it helps a Muslim build a relationship with Allah constantly. 5 moments in a day, or 3 moments in a day, a Muslim is remembering God. So throughout the day, you're remembering Allah, and by remembering Allah throughout the day, you're building a relationship with Him because you're speaking to Him at 5 moments in a day. And we'll look what the Quran says about Salah. Salah keeps you away from immorality and wrongdoing. So another reason why it's so important is because by performing Salah, Salah keeps you away from any kind of wrongdoing. it'd be quite wrong of a Muslim, you could say, that once they've finished their prayer, they go back to doing something that was quite bad. Prayer is meant to remind you of your duty towards Allah. So once you finish your prayer, it should now motivate you to keep your relationship built with Allah and then do good and not do evil. Under the topic of Salah, you also have to know about Friday prayer, which is called Jummah. The Jummah is a Friday prayer done at the mosque, and a sermon called a khutbah is also heard. So how is Jummah or Friday prayer actually done? So firstly, it must be done on a Friday. You can't do Jummah on any other day apart from a Friday. The way it's done is, number one, before the Friday prayer begins, and the imam or the leader of the mosque gives a sermon, which is a speech, before the prayer. So the Imam would give a speech on a topic that is relevant to the audience about Islam, making sure they learn something from Salah as well. And number two, Jummah must be done in what we call congregation, meaning a group, not alone. You cannot pray Jummah on your own. Jummah must be done by a minimum of 3 people, one leader and then 2 people following, and obviously hundreds or thousands can follow behind that one person, because the word Jummah comes from the word Jama', and Jama' in Arabic means together. So it comes from that word. So you cannot perform Jummah prayer on its own. It must be done as a group. That's why it's done in the mosque. Why is Jummah important? Firstly, Jummah is done on a Friday, and Friday is a holy day for Muslims in the week. And number two, notice that the Friday prayer has got a social element to it as well. The 5 daily prayers can be done alone, but the Jummah prayer must be done with a group of people. So now there's a social element because you're praying together, building relationship with people, and you're praying together so that it builds a good bond between the Muslim Ummah or the community. And the Quran says, when you are called to the Jummah prayer, hasten, which means go quick, to the remembrance of Allah. So again, emphasizing how Jummah is really important on that Friday afternoon. Try and perform it as a Muslim because that's what the Quran teaches, because there's a social element, but also a spiritual element. So in a 4-mark question on practices, you could be asked on this topic 2 ways Muslims perform Salah or Jummah prayer. So do have a go at these, giving yourself a time limit of 3 to 4 minutes. 2 ways Muslims perform Salah. One way is when performing ablution, that's the first. This is known as wudu, which involves washing specific body parts before praying. So even though ablution is not part of the Salah itself, you are still saying is done before the Salah as preparation. So you would be given credit for that. And number 2 is by completing the rak'ahs. These are movements which involve standing, reciting, bowing, prostrating, and kneeling. The 2 things are described when it comes to how Salah is performed. What about Friday prayer? Well, one way is by being in congregation. That's my first mark. Jummah prayer must be performed with a group of Muslims and not alone. Second mark. Another way is listening to the sermon. Third mark. Jummah prayer involves the Imam giving a speech about current Islamic issues. 4 marks out of 4. I've explained 2 ways Muslims perform Friday prayer clearly and accurately. Okay, now with the Salah question or the prayer question, you can see because it's quite a big topic, there are many things you could be asked about in a 6-mark question, particularly about the different reasons why these elements of Salah are important to Muslims. So again, you could be asked about Salah in general, about its importance to Muslims, or about the elements of Salah, like wudu, like rak'ahs, like recitations, in the mosque at home or the Friday prayer. So again, you have to be prepared to explain 2 beliefs about each of these elements of prayer for Muslims, not just about the prayer in general. So please feel free to pause the video, giving yourself a time limit of 5 to 6 minutes, or 4 to 5 minutes, sorry, for any of these questions to have a go at them. So let's have a look at a model answer for one of the questions. So you can see here a general question about the importance of Salah. One reason is because it is a pillar of Islam. It is one of the main ways to worship Allah for Muslims. I get 2 marks there for a developed point. What about my second paragraph? Another reason is that it keeps Muslims away from sin. When Muslims pray 5 times a day, they are constantly reminded of Allah, so would be aware of their actions. That's my developed point, 2 more marks. Now my source and application. The Quran says Salah keeps you away from immorality and wrongdoing. This shows that prayer keeps the connection between Muslims and Allah strong, and that would give me 6 marks out of 6, hitting all the criteria for a 6-mark question. And then maybe looking at a question regarding Friday or Jummah prayer's importance. Let's look at how we might answer this one. One reason is because it is done on a holy day. Friday is an important day for the Muslims, and Muslims should remember Allah on this day through Friday prayer. That's 2 marks for a developed point. The Quran says when you are called to Jummah prayer, hasten to the remembrance of Allah. That's my source mark. This shows Muslims are expected to attend Jummah. So that first paragraph, I get 4 marks there and then. 2 marks for the developed point, 1 mark for the source, and 1 mark for the application. Another reason is that it brings the Muslim community together. Friday prayer must be done in congregation, so it will allow Muslims to unite and worship Allah as one. And it will be given 2 marks for that paragraph as a developed point, giving this whole answer 6 marks out of 6.